Welcome back to my garage. Tonight I'm going to show you the ignition I'm running, the PowerSpark, originally meant for radio controlled applications, mainly boats I think, but it seems to work very well for at least small two-stroke engines like I'm running, and I don't see why it couldn't work for bigger engines also. I'll just talk a little bit about what you receive when you order a unit and what the manual is about. It's an extensive manual, comprehensive, with all the info you need to get up and running. I'll also talk about some of the points I like about the ignition and some of the things I don't like about the ignition, and some things you should know when you order one. Okay, so I think I'll just bring you in and I can give you a little look at the manual and tell you just part by part what it's all about, and then I'll show you on my unit just the main features and functions you will have to worry about. There's a lot of features here that you will just set one time and set it and forget it. So yeah, I'll bring you in here and I'll show you. Okay, so when you order a unit, you will get the main unit itself, which I've got mounted here, a fuse holder and a fuse there, and you get this small magnet which is used for programming the unit, and you get the manual. If you order the standard plain ignition pickup sensor, you will get something that you can't really see it because it's behind my pulley here, but you will get a hole sensor mounted on a small piece of PCB and some screws to mount it to your engine. That's it, and there's no coil supplied. Here's the manual, all the information you will need. You can see here that it starts off with assembly, how to wire it up, and yeah, that's mainly it, how to mount it, but you probably understand that anyways. Programming of the unit, setting up the speed sensor or rotation sensor, and adjustments of the sensor angle and pickup point, and choosing your ignition map. Here's an important part. It shows you with drawings how you should mount the sensor, how far away from the sensor the magnet should be. The air gap should be between 0.5 and 1.5 millimeters between the magnet and the sensor, the back side of the sensor body. Then there's a diagram of with all the wires and the colors and where they should go. So it's not fairly easy. It's just one wire, red wire to supply voltage, black wire to ground, and there's a pink and a white wire, and those are meant for the ignition coil. There's also the ignition pickup wire. How to mount the ignition coil? This is not a CDI unit, it's a TCI unit. So the coil is not grounded to the frame. You have a negative and positive part of on the primary side of the ignition coil going to the unit itself. That's because how this unit works, the TCI ignition and not CDI ignition, is that there's a constant battery voltage supply to the coil, and it's every time it's triggered to fire, it cuts the ground, and that creates a big spike in, yeah, not the purpose of this video to explain how this works, but that's what happens, and that's why you can't ground this grounder coil to the frame. Programming essentials. So essentially what you do is you take this supplied magnet or any other magnet and you hold it close to the unit near where the display is. That registers as a button click, kind of. Okay, so then it goes on to explaining all the menu features. Configuration menu. The first one, C, you can choose a ignition map. The next one, CC, that's where you can choose and program your own ignition map. Then there's a speed limit configuration where you can set the rev limiter. ignition energy, where you can select between 1, 2, so there's a selectable ignition energy in 3 steps. I've just chosen 3, the highest, because why not? I think that feature is there because this unit is meant for RC. Sensor angle, that's an important one. That's where you can see or set where your magnet is picked up before top dead center. I'll jump to the next one and then explain. So check sensor, that's a cool feature. This feature, the check sensor feature, lets you rotate your flywheel or whatever you've mounted the magnet to by hand, and when the trigger picks up the magnet, the sensor shows it by a few lines on the display. This is great because then you can check where your pickup is or trigger is picking up the magnet, and say that your sensor angle is set to the default, which is 75 degrees, but you are picking up the magnet at 60 degrees. Then you can change that in the sensor angle adjustment. The rest of the manual is just explaining how you program everything. It's well explained, so you will be able to figure this out by yourself, but I will show you now just the few important things that you should program. Default settings. Let's see here. Here, default settings. Then you will know what it is set up for before, now or from the factory, and then you will also know what parameters you will need to change before running it. So, default settings. Ignition map, that you will have to change to one of the custom ignition maps and program your own map. Sensor angle, that's at 75 degrees before top dead center from factory. So try to set it as close to 75 as you can, but if you're a few degrees off, just change that in the menu. Engine speed limit 59,000 RPM, that should be enough. So if you want a rev limiter, set that lower. Ignition energy is set to 2. I set that to 3. Don't see why you would run anything more lower than the highest setting there. The last page has some technical data. Max RPM 30,000. Accuracy of speed measurement plus minus 1%. Power supply 4 to 12 volts. That's not correct for this unit. This is 11 to 14 volts. It uses between 0.5 and 1.1 amps. So 1.1 amps max. That's at 30,000 RPM. I'll turn the unit on here. You can see what it looks like. That's the water pump there. So when you turn it on and the engine is not running, obviously, it shows main battery voltage. So that's 12 volts. And so this is the unit, and here you can see the sensor down in there, and the coil is mounted over here. So this unit can be a bit picky about coils. It seems to like these ones, the typical scooter coils. Also the same as the cheap performance coils, the orange ones you get off eBay. That's one of it's one of those coils I'm running now, and it works just as well as these ones. There's no performance gain, but so just as well, and they're cheap. They don't like if you happen to have a HPI inner or mini rotor unit on your moped. I know many people have used that. It does not like the HPI coil at all. This is much higher resistance on the primary winding than it is on these ones, so it seems like this unit likes low primary resistance for the ignition coil. For entering the configuration menu, you will have to turn the unit off and hold your magnet close to the unit and then turn it on. And it says CO, then it's in the menu, and it starts flashing the different menu items. C, that's for ignition map. CC, that's the programmable maps. NL, that's speed limit. Ignition energy, sensor angle, and check sensor, and reset. Then it just goes back to normal operation. First of all, you we'll go into the ignition energy setting and set that to maximum. So I'll show you how you do that now. Okay, CO, and then it will start flashing. It flashes each item 3 times, so C 3 times, CC 3 times, and so on. And we're looking for E or IE, ignition energy. Okay, and it says E3, so it's set at 3, and now it starts flashing. So you just wait for your number, and then you bring the magnet close. But I don't have to do it now because it was at the right setting from before. Okay, so turn it off again. Back into the menu, and now I will go to sensor angle. Or first I will go to check sensor. That's CS. So that's sensor angle, but we're going to check sensor first. Okay, check sensor. And now there's one small dot lighting up on the display. And as I rotate my flywheel, you can see as soon as the sensor is picked up by the or the magnet is picked up by the sensor, there's 2 lines showing up on the unit. So what you do is you mount it up as close to 75 degrees as you can, and then you rotate it with something, maybe a degree wheel or a calipers down the plug hole or something, and you rotate it to the lines show up like that, and you check where your sensor is picking up the magnet. And if it's not at 75 degrees, you will have to adjust this in the sensor angle menu. Okay, so let's go to sensor angle. Sensor angle, and it says 73 degrees. So I tried to set it at 75, but I missed by 2 degrees, and I set it at 73. So just turn it off, and it won't save any new settings. Now that you've set your sensor angle to the right position, and you've turned the ignition energy up to maximum, you will have to choose a new ignition map and program it. So into the menu, wait for CC to show up. So C and CC. And then you choose a map. I choose number 10. Okay, and it will start flashing the various, so that's 0 degrees, and I set it to, okay, so 0 degrees is 0. No, I mean 0 RPM, and then degrees, 18 degrees. So that's what I set it at. It starts at 18 degrees, and then we have 10,000 RPM and 1, and degrees at the first point or second point, 24 degrees at 10,000 RPM. Okay, next is 13,500 RPM, and the degrees are 14. And then last step, and 3, 18,000 RPM, and the degrees are 9. Okay. So then I know what my ignition is set at. If I want to change it, I will have to go into the menu one more time, and I'll show you how we do that now. There's 4, as you saw, there's 4 adjustable points here. So that's one of the drawbacks of these units. There's only 4 points of adjustability, so you can't fine-tune every part of the ignition curve. You have only 4 points to play with. With a variated bike like this one, that's no problem. With gears, that can be a problem, so keep that in mind. Okay, into the configuration menu one more time. It starts flashing, and we want to go to CC. Okay, CC, and then choose the ignition map, map 10. Okay, and now it will start flashing the parameters. And if you bring the magnet close now, you will go into to the programming menu or programming feature. Okay, now it will flash 4 lines. No, 2 lines. Okay, anyway. Okay, now it starts. So 0 degrees, and it starts flashing, and I had it at 18, so I'm setting it at 18 again, because that's what I want to run. And you can see that it flashes. So, and you do this with every point of the ignition map, like this. So I'll just go through this point and you will get the idea. So 16, 17, and 18. Okay, then it goes to the next parameter. N1, green one. Okay, so every time you have to bring the magnet close to change one of the points in your ignition map. But now it just cycles through them, and then it saves what I've set. Okay, I hope that helped to explain it. And the manual is very good, so it's explained very thoroughly there too. And now it shows 18, so that's what I set. It was 18 before, but again. Another drawback with this unit is, as you can see, there's time consuming to change the ignition map. So if time is important for you, maybe you should get an Ignitec, which you can program with your computer. And that might be a better unit, but it's fun to try this one, and so far it's working okay. That's it for now. I hope this was to some help. If you haven't seen this unit before, I could provide you with some information about it. Thanks for watching. Please ask questions in the comments if there's anything you're wondering about. Until next time, see you.